Hi, welcome to the Creative Groove. I'm Ingrid Blackburn, and today we're going to work on this one-layer card. We have a great blended card with some simple greetings, and here is a kicked-up version of it using the flick distress technique. Now we're going to start with the top folding card. So we have 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches wide, and I am using my grid paper just as a guide to help place my mask. And it's important to have the fold at the bottom because what we really want to do is mask the top 1 3/4 inches. And this way I can use those lines to help make sure that my post-it note is completely straight. So here I have my work surface. I am going to secure my card down using 2 smaller post-it notes. The upper portion where I'm not really going to be doing much. This way they're out of the way and I don't have any weird bumps on my card. I'm using peacock feathers, broken china, faded jeans, and seedless preserved distress inks, all made by Ranger. And we have some mini blending tools. We're going to start off with the peacock feathers, and this is kind of a bluish greenish color. And what we're going to do is we're going to work on blending our colors. Distress inks are translucent by nature, and that makes them react a little bit more kind of like watercolors do. They're very, very see-through, and when they layer, they create these beautiful shades. So that's really what's unique about these ink pads. They're not really made for stamping, although I do stamp with them, but their blending properties are really unmatched, I think, on the market. So here you see I am starting off my project, whether it's on the post-it note or on my work surface, because if I were to press down directly on my project, it would be rather dark and I get some funky lines. So this is actually at normal speed, and you can see here that I'm not going too quickly. I'm going to speed it up in a minute just to save time on the video. But what you see here is a circular motion that is starting off your project and lightly going across that area. I'm switching into the broken china here, and the broken china we're going to just go from the top down to the bottom. We're not going to obviously start on the post-it note because I don't want to completely go over the peacock feathers. But you can see by their translucent nature how effortlessly they blend together. And we're just creating a layer, and as we have our broken china layer, here we're going to speed it up now, then we will add the faded jeans in its own as well as overlapping with the colors that are next to it. The seedless preserves that we're going to add at the end are really just being used to intensify the darkness of the faded jeans. We're not using it to actually put purple down on our card, as I'll show you in a second. When you're working with distress inks, you want to be sure to not press down too hard with your hand. Now this is when you're sponging, obviously. And when you're layering, you want to make sure to really kind of bring those 2 colors across each end so that they really have that effortless look in between and kind of creating their own hue. And then in addition, you want to make sure to add another layer. You can't go deep enough with these. And I think some of the mistakes that people make is they stop too early. So you want to definitely try and add a little bit of depth. So here we're going to add the seedless preserves, and you can see I'm really just adding it to the bottom, and I probably should have added a little more faded jeans at the very bottom before doing this because it was a little too purple for me, so I had to end up adding a little too much of the darker blue. But you know, you live and you learn. So you can see that looks really purple. So now we're going to add the faded jeans over it, and you'll see that this really creates a very indigo-ish look, and it changes the entire nature of the distress ink color faded jeans. And that is what is so great about these dye inks, because they blend so easily together to create amazing shades. I encourage you to experiment. Throw some wild honey on it, which is a really nice, warm, deep yellow, and you'll get some amazing colors. Now, some of them don't look that great, so in my experience, when you blend some of the purples with some of the yellows, they turn kind of a weirdish brown, but it's kind of interesting depending on what look you're going for. If you're going for a Western look, then that would work. So I encourage you to just kind of do some swatches with some of your inks to see what blends really nicely together and what new colors it creates, and then which ones kind of don't look so great. Same experiment as in regular watercolors if you were to use watercolor paints. So here we're coming back in with all the different colors. This is the peacock feathers, and next we will add a little bit more of the broken china. And you can see it just created this beautiful, beautiful, almost like water in the ocean, how it's really deeper at the bottom but a little brighter at the top. That's kind of what it reminded me of. This would be a great background for a fish stamp, and almost like you're taking an underwater shot. So now that we have that completed, we're going to remove our masks. Looks awesome, doesn't it? And we're going to do a little embossing on it, but I want to make sure that the embossing powder only sticks to the stamped images and not the distressed parts. So I'm just very quickly adding a little bit of heat to this just to kind of dry that area where I'm going to be stamping. I didn't really do the entire portion. You can also just leave this to the side. That would dry as well. And I'm going to test it out. So I'm going to be using black embossing powder. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't going to stick to anything beyond the normal. So, and it didn't, so it was dry enough. I'm adding a little bit of a de-static tool. This is an embossing buddy. And I'm using the Thanks set by Simon Says Stamp and some black pigment ink. Now I picked two Thanks stamps that are somewhat similar in height. They're not exact, but they're pretty close. One is script and one is a print, so that we have some really nice variation. And I'm stamping the print one kind of part of the word off my project and just directly over that line. And then I'm going to stamp the print word, almost the complete word, on this other side. You want to make sure that your words kind of run off of your project. You don't want to have any white space at the ends. You want to have that continual flow. Think of wrapping paper. Image doesn't end at the edge. So now we're going to add a little bit of the powder before stamping our next word, because I don't want that to dry too much in between. I want to make sure I get lots of coverage with my powder. And now we're going to add another greeting right above the thanks and to the left, and that says can't say enough. So it's can't say enough thanks. You can see I'm adding some black embossing powder here, and then we're going to quickly heat set that. Now as you're heat setting it, it is going to kind of warp your card a little bit, and because this is a one layer card, you're going to want that to be somewhat flat. So you can see that it is a little bent right there. So I'm just going to kind of bend it back a little bit, and I'm going to give that a chance to dry. You don't want to do this next step until that's completely dry, but you can also lay a acrylic block on top or something else that's heavy as well. Here you have the two samples. You have the one on the left, which is the one layer, and here is the kicked up version, and that also uses the flick distress technique. For more details on the second card, as well as dimensions and supplies, be sure to click the link at the top of the information section below, and I have a link here at the end to that another video that teaches you that technique, as well as another fun watercolor stamped video.